How's it going, YouTube? My name is LBNinja7, your resident Mistweaver monk, and guys, with a new PTR build comes more great news for us Mistweavers, so stay tuned because we're going to go through all of the changes coming to the current PTR build. They did deliver. I'll go ahead and spoil that. They did deliver on what they said they were going to do. Now, there is a blue post with a bunch of developer notes, and I do have the PTR build open on my computer, and we're going to walk through each of the changes, talk about what they mean for our numbers, our builds, if they're going to change anything. Let's go and jump right into it. So first up, we're going to talk about the 4 set. Our 4 set saw 3 changes coming into this new PTR build, and we're going to start from the bottom up. So it now only accumulates. They reverted that number. It was 20 in the most recent PTR build. Now it's going back to 15%. On the surface level, this seems like a nerf, and those are never good. However, when given the context of these other 2 changes, it's actually fine. It is 100% fine. They originally bumped it up to 20% because they saw the number, the amount of healing that Chi Harmony, the 4 set popping heal did, was about only 4 or 5% in our raid environments, or at least in my experience, and I've heard that same consistent number, about that number from a lot of other Mistweaver monks. So they wanted to bump that number up and just see that number perform a little bit better, so they bumped it up to 20. Now it's gonna still be performing a lot better, even though they've knocked it back down to 15, and that is because of this first change here. So with our 4 set bonus, they fixed an issue that caused some healing spells, okay, not to properly contribute to Chi Harmony. So what they're referring to here is there's a long list of spells, but some of the biggest and most important ones that just were not working, they were not storing healing into our 4 set, was Invigorating Mist. I'm sure you can imagine how much healing this does, and also Invigorating Mist cleaves off of people that have Renewing Mist on them, so they're likely gonna have a Chi Harmony buff on them. But then also our Awakened Feline just was not storing healing, and that was a very big letdown for the Mythic Plus community, because that's a big majority of their healing. And then when they're not using Awakened Feline, they're using Ancient Teachings, and that also is not working. Among a large list of other sources of healing that just were not working, these 3 now are working and are confirmed to have been, they were intended to have worked from the beginning. And then last up is this 3rd change. Fixed an issue that caused some healing spells to double dip contribution to Chi Harmony. Now, if you're like me, someone who loves to come and test numbers, jot down numbers, make spreadsheets on, I am apparently dying, of things on the PTR, what I would do is I would apply a Chi Harmony, and then when they first released the PTR, I was coming on here and testing things like what spells are working. When I was first doing that, you would come in here, you would see how much healing each source did, see how much healing or overhealing your Chi Harmony did. Sorry, it's a little buggy right now, but see how much overhealing your Chi Harmony did and kind of add it up and see what sources are working, and that's kind of how I did it. But it was driving me, and I know for a fact it was driving some of the other big brain Mistweavers wild, that some of the numbers just were not adding up. Chi Harmony was releasing like weird amounts of healing that you couldn't really draw any conclusions of where it's coming from. So this is just saying, hey, all this is saying is it's gonna work how it's intended. It's gonna work how it reads, and all in all, huge thumbs up. Now let's go and test it. So we're gonna let this guy beat into us a little, take a little bit of damage, so that we actually have some healing to be done. Let's reset our data, and then we're gonna apply a Chi Harmony to ourselves. And wow, these guys kill me so slow. Come on, hurt me. That did nothing. Give me your best. But and then we're just gonna heal ourselves up a bit with Awakened Feline and see what the healing is from our Chi Harmony. So so far we are still not taking any damage. Hopefully this flare makes us take some damage. Let's do Ancient Teachings. See, then even once I did my Rising Sun Kick, I was already full health from my Mastery proc and stuff. But then we just got a Chi Harmony pop. It did 10k there. It did 17% of the overhealing. If you look at the overhealing, that's where it shows better. So yeah, see, as you see there, Ancient Teachings is absolutely working, whereas before it would have done like 1% here, because it would have only captured the healing from like the Essence Font Bolt and the Renewing Mist, so it would have been very disappointing. Now it's a lot better because it captures those major sources that we really rely on in every playstyle. So all in all, those changes, the changes to our 4 set, although they reverted this change back down to 15%, I will accept it because this change is going to make a huge difference. All right, next up, we basically have 2 categories. We can go over the healing elixir and expel harm changes that everyone is excited for, or we have a bunch of miscellaneous changes. And you know what? Let's go and jump right into the healing elixir changes. So what did they do recently? Well, healing elixir, before the PTR even came out, it was a 2-charge 30-second recharge button that you could press off the global cooldown that would heal you for 15% of your max HP, which was great, especially in Mythic Plus, because you could really plan it around your cooldowns. You would know who else, if you needed to heal everyone else, and then just use your healing elixirs to give yourself 30% health back. But since it's on such a low cooldown in a Mythic Plus environment, you could press it upwards to like 50, sometimes if you're crazy and don't time the dungeon, maybe like 60 times in a dungeon. It was just insane how much value you could technically get out of it. And the best part was you didn't have to just use it when you're about to die. You could, like I said, plan your cooldowns around it. Use it when you're 85% health. Top yourself up on the first boss of Brackenhide so that the dot falls off of you. That way you only have 4 other people to heal outside of your cooldowns, and get them above that threshold, that I believe it's 90% threshold. So things like that, little optimizations like that, healing elixir was allowing for. And then recently in the PTR, they did make it a 100% passive talent. We no longer press the button, have control over when we get the healing. It just happens right once you fall below 35% health. And the problem was the whole charges, the whole recharge rate, the whole rate of how much it actually heals was the same. So when you're doing the same amount of healing on the same amount of interval, the same interval, but it now has a big stipulation of you have to fall below 35% health, you can imagine how much less frequently this was coming up and how much less power healing elixir had. So they wanted to basically change healing elixir, take one more button off of our bars, basically is how to summarize how they put it, and then put some of that power of what it was doing for us. They wanted to fill that void of what it was doing for us with expel harm, which is currently on our bars. We just don't really press it. At least in PvE, we don't press expel harm because it's a self-heal. It doesn't heal as much as our main heal in Vivify. Whereas with Vivify, at least if I Vivify myself, I'll cleave healing with Invigorating Mist on top of everyone else that has a Renewing Mist and still do more healing to myself. So they said they're gonna buff expel harm. So how do they do that? Expel harm healing is now increased by 5.5 times. 550% bonus healing. Now I can already imagine, I'm calling it now, and you can see what time I'm recording this video, 8:24 p.m. on 9/27. I know that other YouTubers are going to use this as clickbait, say buffed by 5.5 times. Well, let's look at the number it actually does. Expel harm, well, first let's look at Vivify. I don't even know if I have Vivify on my bars. I move things around so much, but Vivify will heal yourself for 44,000. That's the number that my tooltip says. And then heal anyone that it cleaves onto by 22,000. Now, expel harm will do 114,000 healing. So it's it's almost 3 times a Vivify. It's about 2.5 times a Vivify. So all in all, it's gonna be very impactful. They basically said that they wanted it to be what healing elixir used to be. If we're gonna get agency over a self-heal, they wanted expel harm to be that. So all in all, huge, and it does. It packs a punch. If I press expel harm, let's go ahead and reset the data. I mean, I don't know why I'm doing this because you can see how much healing it does. Well, apparently it doesn't want to show, but it also does damage. That's one of the hidden things to it. Expel negative chi from your body, healing X amount and dealing 25% of the amount healed as nature damage to an enemy. And they also buffed that range of how much range your damage is going to be. So let's get in combat with this little seedling. Let's expel harm, a self heal. Let's do it. Boom, 30,000. So all in all, if we compare it to a Tiger Palm, it's on average about like 5 times, about 4 times as much as a Tiger Palm. And then if we compare it to a Rising Sun Kick, it does about, well, a little less than a rising sun cake. So it's good damage. If we were solely trying to do like boss damage in a Mythic Plus dungeon, it's gonna probably make it into our rotation. I guess I'll have to test this a lot more, but all in all, this is very cool. And here we go. Expel Harm now deals damage equal to 25% of the amount healed instead of 10%. So this is what's going to be big, and what might actually make it into our rotation is in Mythic Plus especially is how much damage it's actually going to be returning. But then also we're going to be pressing it a lot more often because it's going to be a good self-heal option. If we are on the move, need to heal ourselves in a pinch, maybe we don't have a Vivacious Vivification off cooldown, or we just need even more healing onto ourselves, Expel Harm is an option now, which is very cool. You guys see how much healing it does. And then also, just to make things even better, they've reduced the mana cost because I guess if they're trying to fill the Healing Elixir void now, Healing Elixir did not cost mana, so if you're going to self-heal yourself, they don't want it to be as punishing as using 3% of your mana. So this is just a very welcome change. If we're going to be pressing this button more often, I don't want to feel punished adding a very mana expensive button into my rotation, but we're still going to have to see how that plays out. And then, like I said here, Expel Harm's damage range is increased to 20 yards, whereas it was just 8 yards. So now you can use it while you're kind of dodging a little swirly. If you need to self-heal on the cannons on the last boss of Freehold, you can run out a bit and press it, and you'll still damage the boss if that's what you're intending to do. But then also, we're going to get back up here to Healing Elixir stuff. I know, I kind of skipped those. But then we have some of the 3 Expel Harm talents are being changed. So first up, Strength of Spirit now increases the healing of Expel Harm by only 30%, whereas it was 100% before. So we're seeing a 70% effectiveness decrease in Strength of Spirit, but is that a nerf? Honestly, not really, because we're still going to be seeing more. If you take 5.5 times 30%, that's still going to equal more than 100%. So it's still a buff. It's just this number makes it look like a brutal nerf. It's really not if you take into account the base healing that Expel Harm is going to do. And then Profound Rebuttal, I guess I should show where these are on the talent tree. So the three Expel Harm ones are this one, Vigorous Expulsion, Profound Rebuttal, and Strength of Spirit. So here's that one, Strength of Spirit. This will only do 30% bonus healing based on your missing health. And then the one that we were just reading, so Profound Rebuttal now increases the critical healing of Expel Harm by 15%, whereas it was 50%. If you do the same math as before, 15%, yeah, you're taking off about over 2/3 of its healing, or of this talent's effectiveness. But once again, but not really, because the new and improved base healing is more than 3/2 higher than what it was before. So yeah, Profound Rebuttal, although it seems like an overall nerf, it's still a net buff in that sense. So Profound Rebuttal is right here. Expel Harm's critical healing is now only increased by 15%. But still, you can imagine how much more of a punch that's going to pack. And then finally, the last thing is Expel Harm. They removed its ability to be cast during Soothing Mist. So I'm sure only half of you guys knew this. If you did, kudos to you, let me know down in the comments. But while you're channeling Soothing Mist, you can Enveloping Mist, you can Vivify, you can do a couple things, Zen Pulse, and it will not cancel your Soothing Mist. But another one was Expel Harm. You could Expel Harm and it would heal you and your ally. But no one ever used it, because why would you ever press Expel Harm there over a Vivify? Unless, like I said, you're in PvP. I know that PvP people do actually do that, but it was just a bonus that was afforded to Expel Harm that we just never used. Now they've completely removed that so that they didn't have to worry about balancing issues, because if I Expel Harm myself and an ally and it does 110,000 healing and then does 50,000 damage around each of us to one enemy, then that would be very powerful. So I can see why they did take this off. Now let's get up to Healing Elixir. So all of these, all in all, let's give a thumbs up to the Expel Harm changes. I'm excited to see if this does actually make it into our rotation. I can 100% see it making into our Mythic Plus our Mythic Plus rotation, especially on single target bosses. I mean, I can just imagine pressing this button for the damage alone is going to be exciting and rewarding. It's also just going to help us heal up the overall party by allowing us to heal ourselves up in an instant once every 15 seconds. Now, it's not going to fully heal us in a lot of cases, but it's going to add up. It's going to give us another button to press on the move that's worth pressing. So all in all, big thumbs up. But now, how did they compensate this? Did they completely keep healing Elixir down in the gutter where we're not even going to take it in any form of content? Or did they bring it back? Did they revive it back to its original glory? Let's go ahead and read about that. So Healing Elixir now additionally heals if excess healing elixirs are generated. So if you remember before, I was complaining about how healing elixir in its current PTR state before these changes, it would only proc like 5 times in a Mythic Plus dungeon. So they heard us complaining about that and they were like, okay, well, let's make sure that it procs more than just 5 times in a dungeon. So now if I'm sitting at max healing elixir charges and I get that next one to recharge, it's just gonna auto consume one, is how this reads, and it's how the talent actually reads itself. Let me go and show you. So where does it say that? Or generate, you consume a healing elixir when you drop below 40% or generate excess healing elixirs, healing yourself instantly for 20% of your max health. Spoiler alert, that is one of the changes to 20%. So all in all, that's a bit weird, but if I just randomly just walk around and I'm just being healed by something passive, I guess it's better than nothing. And to take that and compound it with the Expel harm changes, we have the agency in Expel harm, and then we have this passive that's gonna be a bit more effective than it just was. You know what? I'm excited to see how this plays out. Also, Healing Elixir now restores 20% of your max health instead of 15%, so that's a great change. I wish that it would have done that while we sell the agency, but you know what? I'll take it. And then also, Healing Elixir now will automatically trigger at 40% health instead of 35% health. Now, that probably does not seem like a big change to you. But let me kind of draw another picture for you about the 35% health threshold. How many of you guys have played Discipline Priest ever since they got their Power Word Life talent? The one that's like an execute heal if they're below like 35% health. How many of you guys have tried that talent? Now, how many of you guys have pressed that button on someone when they look to be 35% health, but they're really not, and then it does like no healing, then it has a longer cooldown, and you just want to cry because that talent feels horrible when pressed at like 36% health? It's the most frustrating thing ever. So I'm sure you can imagine how often that happens, how often people get to about 35 to 40% health versus how often people get below 35% health. It's a big difference. It's going to have a big impact. So all in all, adding a lot of value to the passivity, the passive effects of Healing Elixir. I'm excited to see if we still take this and how powerful it is. I mean, 20% more effective health as long as a slam doesn't kill you is great. I'm excited to try this out alongside these Expel harm changes. All in all, would I rather have this current version, the big pack-a-punch Expel harms with the weird healing elixirs that heal more, versus what we had before in 10.1.7? I don't know. I'm gonna have to test it a lot more, and you will be seeing a lot more videos on it coming up. But as for now, I think it is a thumbs up. I think overall these changes are a thumbs up, and I'm excited, definitely excited to play with these. Now, those two out of the way, Expel harm, Healing Elixir, they have been giving all of us nightmares, trying to wonder what they're gonna do with these two talents or these two abilities. And yeah, I'm excited to see how they play. Let's go and move on away from them, and let's move on to the miscellaneous section. So these are just some random other changes that are coming. So Unison now duplicates only 75% of Soothing Mist healing done, whereas it was basically a second Soothing Mist. Let's go and swap to our raid build. So what does this mean? Well, it means that one of our capstone, our keystone talents in Unison that we actually were taking in most cases for raid is just gonna be weaker. We're gonna get less healing percent in raids from Unison, and it could have a big impact. We might actually move away from this talent. Sorry, I had to actually come into town. I don't know why I tried to test Unison when I'm the only one nearby. Okay, so if I Soothing Mist this guard, then you'll see Unison will bounce to someone nearby. Now, they've made a lot of changes to Jade Serpent statue, and how Unison works with it and how they have extended range, and they've buffed Soothing Mist by a lot coming into this tier. So you can imagine that these numbers we're probably gonna see some changes. If they're gonna buff Soothing Mist and make sure that Summon Jade Serpent statue also soothes that same target for the same amount, then the Unison that's bouncing off of it, yeah, it probably makes sense that it's a little bit weaker, especially since Summon Jade Serpent statue, that was an alliteration, still works with Soothing Mist. You see here, I'm getting a Unison, and so is the Jade Serpent statue. We have 4 Soothing Mists going at any given time, but now since 2 of those 4 Soothing Mists are at 75% effectiveness, we technically went down from having 400% of a Soothing Mist off of 1 press of it down to 3.5 times, so 350% Soothing Mists every time we press it. Wow, that was a lot. I feel like I said soothing way too many times, but hopefully you guys, that makes sense to you. So all in all, it seems like a minor nerf. It seems like, why are they nerfing Unison? Because it is a capstone talent. It wasn't doing insane amounts of healing. It really wasn't. It was just good enough passive healing that kind of fit our playstyle, that we were just taking to have bonus healing. So all in all, a very weird one, but I'm worried to see if this changes our raid build, but I don't think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I think Mending Proliferation adds a lot of healing in raids, so that would be a fun replacement. There are just a lot of very cool talents that we are not taking. We're no longer, or at least from the last time that I tested the raid, we're no longer taking Misty Peaks. We have a lot of other good things, like imagine taking Font of Life, and actually now we play Essence Font. That's a pipe dream, because we wouldn't. This small change would not change our whole playstyle, but it's just exciting when things like this change in our current build. It just is a little worrying. Will this cause us to not take this talent? I don't know. I guess we're just gonna have to see how it really impacts the numbers, because the raid testing starts again tomorrow. So all in all, a weird change, a very weird change. I'm very curious why they think Unison, or why they thought Unison was a big boon, and why they thought that it needed to be nerfed. I'm very interested to hear what they have to say there. But all in all, you know what? Fine, I'll take it, because they gave us the buffs to the 4-set, or the 4-set working how we wanted it to. So I guess I'll take it and I'll be happy. But then also they're doing another nerf to Enveloping Breath. So Enveloping Breath is what happens when on our Yulon or our Chi-Ji, when we cast an Enveloping Mist on an ally, we're going to breathe Enveloping Breath onto 5 targets. So they're reducing that by another 1/5, by 20%. So that's going to hurt. It'll probably hurt our raid ramp more than it'll hurt our Mythic Plus, because in Mythic Plus we go Chi-Ji, and we every couple of seconds, about every 2 or 3 global cooldowns, will Enveloping Mist, whereas in our raid build we Enveloping Mist a couple times in a row, so you're just seeing more bursty healing from Enveloping Breath. But all in all, this is not like a major healing source ever since they originally nerfed it. So kind of, once again, just a weird number to tweak. But you know what? Maybe they have their reasons. Maybe they're like, okay, we're adding a lot of power into the 4-set by making it accept the Invigorating Mist. So we got to go ahead and prepare and tweak some of these numbers. Weird stuff, though, if you ask me. And then also a quality of life improvement, I guess you could call this. Invigorating Mist healing visual is now only visible to yourself. So I could imagine that if you had a raid group of 30 Mistweavers that all came into Valdrakken and all just started spamming Yulon, doing your Yulon rotation, and just spreading Renewing Mist and spamming Vivifies, I can imagine all those green particle effects could probably slow the game down. Maybe that's why this is in here. If you can think of another reason other than just like slowing the game down or having more particle effects that are unnecessary, let me know. Am I missing something? But then we're coming up on the last 2, and these 2 are honestly 2 of the most impactful ones on this entire list. So Rising Sunkick's damage is now increased by 20%. Rising Sunkick is our main single target damage, and we already press it in raid very frequently, even when we're doing the Yulon ramping build, because it procs our Rising Mist, it spreads a Rapid Diffusion Renewing Mist, so it's already in our rotation. It's already the best button in our rotation. We press it off cooldown, so just getting 20% more free damage in raid is going to be great. But what does this mean for the Ancient Teachings community, the people that play Mythic Plus? This is huge. This is great. It's going to help your, not just your boss damage, not just your pack damage, your like 3 target pack damage. This is also going to help your Ancient Teachings. This is going to buff your Rising Sun Kick healing from Ancient Teachings also by 20%. So absolutely amazing change there. Now, will this bring Ancient Teachings more into a discussion for raid? Will we start taking Ancient Teachings? I don't think so. I don't think a 20% buff to only one of the Ancient Teaching sources is going to be enough. Now, albeit it is probably the most important one. Now, what will this look like for the cleave bosses? The bosses where even when we're using the Yulon build, we swap to like a Fey line 3 target cleaving council boss style build. This will also just be very nice. Like I said, Blackout Kick is probably the best button still on those 3 target cleaves because you get 12 hits per 1 button press. But Rising Sun Kick damage is nothing to scoff at, and we'll probably just add a little bit more Ancient Teachings healing into those bosses. And then finally, our final change coming to Mistweavers, Calming Presence now reduces damage taken by 6%, and it was 3%. Now this does not apply to PvP combat because Mistweavers are tanky enough in PvP. But Calming Presence, if you don't know what they're referring to, it's this talent here. It's just a talent you could take that is a passive damage reduction. Always, no stipulations like bounce back or things like this. It is just a flat damage reduction. Huge. This is so big for us. Now you're probably thinking it's only 3%. We're only getting 3% less damage taken, and I get that. I get it's a small number. It seems like a small tweak, but think about over a dungeon, how much damage you take. Now reduce that by 3, and that's a lot less healing into yourself that you're going to be doing, a lot more healing that's going to be going to your allies, probably a lot less deaths. And the reason why this is so big is because when you think of it like you're pushing the top end keys, like put yourself in Megaset's shoes. I know we're cracked at the game right now because we're in Megaset's shoes, but put yourself in her shoes. She's pushing a plus 30 and she's on her Mistweaver and she's like coming up to a big slam in a boss fight. She presses Fortifying Brew and it gives her 20% bonus health and reduces her damage taken by 20%. Well, these changes, these defensives, they compound on top of the passive damage mitigation. So you're not, in that instance, you're not just taking 20% less damage, you're taking 20% less damage and 6% less damage. So this will compound on top of your defensive. So in your defensive, your most defensive moments, while also just helping with like tick damage, will help you survive those pass fail checks. One thing that is big when you're looking for what becomes the meta healer is, can they just flat out survive it? And with the recent changes to Chi Cocoon, we have gotten a lot of we've been able to make the group, the Mythic Plus group, survive a lot more of those big slams of damage. If your whole group takes 600,000 damage, you as the Mistweaver, you're dead. You are just dead because right here I have less than 600,000 health. Changes like this are exceptional, and definitely more changes like this are needed in order to push us from being, oh yeah, Mistweaver can do a ton of healing. I don't know why they're buffing their healing, because they do a ton of healing, but no one's playing them and they're not meta. These changes are what's going to fix that. More of these changes are going to push us to being played more often at the top end level by more people than just the Mistweaver specialist. You'll probably see some YouTubers try it out because they're going to see, is this the real deal? It's just making them basically have 106% effective of health. Is that going to be worth it? I don't know. I think this is definitely an amazing change. I don't think it's a big enough change to like push us to the top of the meta. I just want to highlight how important changes like this are. And if you think about, we were just in HPAL winter, HPAL summer. Holy Paladin was the god tier healer, and they have a lot of strong passive armor talents. One of the biggest ones, probably the biggest one, is Sanctified Plates. If you've never read this talent, it is disgusting, and why it was on a healer, I have no idea. Not throwing shade to my Holy Paladin friends, it's just, this was a great talent. It's now going to be 40% less effective. Let's go ahead and read that talent. I'm not going to go through every healer and all the changes, just this one. So Sanctified Plates for Holies, for Holy Paladins said armor is increased by 20%. Stamina, that's not it. Stamina is increased by 10%. That's not it. Damage from AoE attacks is reduced by 10%. So just insane. Yes, you had to put 2 points in to get all those big numbers. But guys, the amount of hits that Holy Paladins are just able to survive because they're so tanky, it comes from things like this. Things that they just get free armor and a talent, where in free mitigation, now we get a little bit more free mitigation. So it's honestly such a great change. But guys, that's going to do it for the list of all the changes. Like I said, I will have this long post in the description if you want to go through all the classes. There are a ton of stuff that you might want to read into, a lot of changes to a lot of different healer specs. If you want to see a more general all healer video like this in this similar style, let me know down in the comments below, and I'd be glad to make that for you guys. But guys, thank you so much for all the support lately, and I've got to give a special shout out to my Patreons. If your name is on the screen, you are absolutely hard carrying this channel and hard carrying me. Honestly, you are helping me live out my dream of being a full-time YouTuber. So thank you so much for this this specific support. You're very much appreciated, and thank you so much. If you want to see your name on the screen and you want to get a special shout out, you want to have your name in my videos, make sure and check out the links down in the description below. But guys, a free way to support me is to just hit subscribe, just hit like, just comment down below. As you've seen recently, the developers have been reading apparently like my comments, hopefully some forum posts, they've been in Discords, they've been studying up on our feedback recently. So definitely make sure that you're having a big discussion down in the comments below. Let your opinions be heard. But guys, like I said, if you like this video, just hit that button. It's free to do so, and so is subscribing. If you want to see more content from me, especially as 10.2 approaches, I will be giving a lot of these updates and giving you my opinion on which healer you guys should play, or try to help you make that decision. Thank you so much for watching this video. You guys are amazing. I really appreciate all the support lately. Guys, that's gonna do it for this one. I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care.